My name is Sonia Cepelewicz. I was born in Poland, in a small town. It was called Lechovitch. There were about 4,000 or 5,000 people, and half of them were Jewish people. And I have to introduce my father's work and business because that's the way we survived. So you have to know exactly what he did. We had generations of generations. We rented, it's called a smolarnia in Russian. It means that we rented out a forest from Polish aristocrats. Jewish people could not buy land, so we rented it out. And in the forest, we had a house, a wooden house, which he was there 5 days a week in the forest. And we produced from a certain, we had a factory. And from the factory, we had peasants working for us, and they used to dig out certain trees. The trees had to be 100-year-old. And we had a very big pot. It was like 6 meters big, an iron pot. And underneath was fired all the time, burning. Now from those trees, he took the roots out. The tree had to be over 100-year-old. And they put in the pot and it burned day and night. And it used to produce turpentine. It was like a distillery. And a tar, grease, and coal from those roots of the trees. And well, let me just make sure, yeah. And the forest belonged to the aristocrats, Polish aristocrats, from the Radziwill family. And my father used to pay from the profit to those people who were rented out the forest. And this, I know that my grandfather was in the same business, my uncle, my great-grandfather, so we were generations in that place. Now my mother and we lived in the city. We didn't live in the forest. The factory was 20 kilometers away from the house that we lived. So my mother, and we have 6 children. This is my family. That's my father, Israel, my mother, Chaya, my oldest sister, Nahama, and 4 brothers, and I'm the youngest. That's me. This picture was after the war, later on. Anyway, so we lived with my mother and the children. All of us lived in the city. And my father was 5 days a week away in the forest, working there. And Friday he used to come for Shabbat, for Saturday, to be with the family. And I remember him as a child coming on a horse and a wagon. He was riding a horse from the forest. That's the way we lived. In 1941, Poland was occupied by the Germans. In the beginning, when the Germans came to us, in 1941, I was 3-year-old. I was 3, and the oldest, Nahama, was 17. My brothers in between. She was 17, 16, and he was 12, 10, 6, and 3. So when the Germans came in the beginning, they were soldiers, not the SS. And they were soldiers, they were not as bad. So what they did in the beginning, they organized all the men. I think in the beginning what they organized the men for work, to pave streets, to pay for the soldiers to do everything. And the women, they used to bring to us the laundry, to wash the laundry, to do things. And later on it became worse because they arrested all the intellectuals, which was the teachers, the doctors, the lawyers. When you get rid of the leaders, then the people don't know anything. That's what they started with, the leaders to get rid. Then, and my father took my older brother and he went to the factory there. And one day, while my mother was with all the 5 children, in the morning, it was very early, we heard, Juden, aus, go out, Jews, out. And they came SS. At that time, we were already SS, not the German soldiers only, but SS. And they started at that time the shooting. So my mother knew all the time those troubles, so all the jewelry and the money she had with her hair. And when they started to take us out, the men with the guns, she told the German, please don't kill us. Take everything that I have, and she gave him. When he saw all that, he said, okay, look, run, Jews. And my mother yelled to us, children, run to daddy. And we got separated all, because in the streets was shooting and killing and screaming. I just can hear screaming. And we were all separated. My sister grabbed me, and she ran with me. My mother grabbed my little brother, and she disappeared. And my 2 other brothers also disappeared. It was hell. We didn't know what was going on, just screaming and shooting. Now my sister grabbed me, and she went to a house, to a neighbor that we knew. They were non-Jewish. And she said, please hide us. But he said he was afraid, because if he would hide us, the Germans would shoot him too. So he said, please go out. And while my sister was holding my hand, the Germans walked in, and they started to hit that Polish guy. They thought that he's Jewish. My sister spoke German, and she said, no Jews. None of us are Jews, she said. So the Germans walked away, and my sister grabbed me, and she ran in to a barn. That Polish guy had a big barn next to the house attached. And in the barn was a very big how do you say it?
Basket?
A basket, a straw basket that the peasants used to have it on the wagon, with the horse with the wagon, a big one. She put me underneath the basket, and she went underneath, and she turned around the basket, and we were covered. While we were there, the Germans walked in, looking in the barn, and they did find some Jews who were hiding there. And they walked next to us, and I was quiet like a mouse. My sister said if I would make a peep, they would hear me. I was lying there, and we heard them crying. They took out some people who were hiding, and they took them out. And we were lying there till at night. At night, when it was quiet in the barn, my sister took me out, and we should stretch out, and she looked for some food. So she saw cows. She took off my shoe, and she milked in the shoe, and she gave me to drink. And then she looked, and she saw chickens. They laid eggs. She found an egg. She gave me to drink. And in the morning, we went again underneath the basket. Like this, we were 3 days there, 3 days and 3 nights. And what we were lucky, because the woman and the owner of the house walked in, and they never looked or realized that somebody is hiding underneath the basket. After the 3rd day, my sister saw me. Yeah, and I always my sister told me that I used to say, Nahama, when we'll go out, I want a big bread, a whole loaf I'm going to eat. And I did ask her if my mother is alive. This is very puzzling, a 3-year-old child that I knew about life and death. Because I said, is Mom alive? And she said, fine. And I heard sounds. Tick, 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 tick. I didn't know what it was. I said, what is it? She said, a tractor. It was shooting. They were shooting and shooting for 3 days and 3 nights. They killed a few thousand people. We were 3,000 or 4,000 Jews. Half of them were gone. The 3rd day, she saw me sleeping, and I'm already very weak. She said she can't keep me anymore there. At the moment she went out, the woman walked in, the owner, the Polish lady, and she saw my sister. So my sister started to beg her, please don't give us out. I have a little one here hiding too. So the Polish ladies told us, they made a ghetto, the Germans, and they said they're not going to kill anymore the Jews. Everybody should go to the ghetto. And then she said, I saw your mother and your little brother going to the ghetto. So my mother also was hiding in another barn with my little brother. The peasants used to put a lot of straw, like big bundles of straw to feed the cows. So between the wall and that straw, she was hiding with my brother. It was luck, because also she said German walked in there, they found some Jews, and they didn't find my mother and my little brother. The other two brothers, the 10-year-old and the 12, were also separated, but each of them knew at night to run 20 kilometers to the factory where my father was there. So anyway, my sister took me, and we went to the ghetto. Now we found my mother and my little brother. What I remember in the ghetto as a 3-year-old is the crying. I remember things on the floor, because there were a lot of children all by themselves, orphans. They became all orphans overnight. No parents. There were parents who lost their children. There was crying and crying. I just remember crying. I didn't comprehend what's going on, but meantime, my father heard what was going on, that they killed half of the Jews. So he sent some of the peasants who worked for him to see. And by the way, my two brothers came each separately to the factory. They did come to my father. So my father already knew. He had one son, the 16-year-old, working with him. Now he had 2 children, so he has already 3 kids safe. Now, he sent one of the workers to take us out from the ghetto. At that time, the ghetto, the beginning, it was not fenced, it was just the beginning. A ghetto means, I don't know if you know about that they took certain houses and they put in all the people there. Like in one room could be 20 people, or that, all together. In a certain area, and you couldn't mix and go out, but we didn't have a fence yet. So that a peasant came, and it dressed us all like the peasants. All, they used to go no shoes, and that, with a long skirt, with a kerchief, all dressed. And he took us out all from the ghetto to the factory. Now, my father had a permit to work for the Germans because they needed the tar and the turpentine and all that for the tanks and for all so he had a special permit as a Nützlicher Jude, which means a Jew who is useful for them. But my father knew that eventually they will come for him. So he told us, you cannot stay in that house in the forest with us, with them. And he told us right away we should be somewhere in the forest. We should be away there. So we at night slept in the forest. And now I will tell you exactly why it's important to tell you about my father's business, because he was all his life also worked in the forest. So he knew how to survive. It means which mushrooms we can eat, which one is not poisonous, which nuts we can have. He always told me, if an animal eats the nut, Sonia, it's not poisonous, because if he can eat it, you can have it. Which berries we can have. He knew other wonderful things, like we had something, an infection on the skin or that. I remember him taking a leaf, and the leaf had like a glue in it, and he used to put on the skin. After a day or 2, the whole pus and everything, the infection went away. So he knew the survival. That was instrumental in our way how we survived. He knew the forest. Now, one day, and we lived in the forest, and my father still worked with the peasants in that factory. One day, my sister and my mother came to the factory, not around, to take some berries and raspberries, and suddenly they hear Germans surrounded all the factory. And they saw there my father and my sister and my mother. My father started to run to the wood. They were shooting, but he knew how to run. You don't run straight, you run. He was a soldier in the First World War. So he knew that you'd run in like this way so the bullets won't get you. So he ran away to the woods. We heard shooting in the forest. We started to run all over too. My mother and the sister was caught. The Germans put them in the house. And they looked for the rest of the family. Now in the house, because we were never sure, all our life and generations in Poland, we were never secure. So my father made a tunnel he dug out in the house. It was covered with a wooden, like the floor. But one mistake he made, it was a tunnel, but it didn't go outside to the forest. It was an end. It was like a few meters, like 20 feet, but it was no exit. So when the Germans were looking for the rest, my mother and my sister went in the tunnel and they covered themselves. But the Germans knew that they're there. So when they walked in and they yelled, if nobody's coming out, we're going to put dynamite and we're going to blow up the house. So my sister said, Ma, I have to go out. They know that we are here. But before she went into the tunnel, she opened the windows. So they should think that she ran out from the window, from the house. So she told my mother, you stay. My mother said, no, you are young. You have to leave. I will go out. And my sister said, no, you have 5 children. You have to go, you have to be alive. And she covered my mother with sand and everything in the tunnel, and she went out. She went out, the Germans were hitting her, and they took her to the ghetto. They said, where's the old woman? My mother was only 41 years old at that time, in 1941. Where's that old woman? She said she ran out from the window. They were hitting her, and they took her. And on the way, they picked up more Jews who had a drugstore, one this, to the ghetto. Now, my father always told all the children, if we're separate in the forest for some reason, there is this place we're going to meet. You should know this and this place we're going to meet. And that was for the future. Now, we were all separated in the forest. We found each other there. But my sister, I remember my mother came crying later on at night. They took away my sister and everything. And my sister was in ghetto. Now I will tell the part of my sister. When she was in ghetto, she knew there were maybe 200 people left already in the ghetto from whatever people were before. So she told her, all young people there were. She said, we have to run away in the forest. But she didn't want to tell them that her family is in the forest in case the Germans will catch them and they will start questioning, so she didn't want, but she said, we can live in the forest, I know. They were all people from the cities, from Warsaw, from other cities. They didn't know how to live in the forest. They said, no, we can't live in the forest. She said, if we stay in the ghetto, we'll die. 3 people said they will run away with her. And when my mother separated with her, she had a wedding band, and that she gave it to her. She said, it may help you. Take it to him, wherever. So anyway, those 3 people decided, they were all young men in the age of 20, in the early 20s. And at night, there was a Polish guy that my sister knew them from years ago. He was watching there. She gave him the ring, and they gave him some, whatever they had, the jewelry. And at night, she took them to the forest, my sister. Now she came to the place that my father said. My father came every single night and every day at that place, look, maybe my sister will show up. And one day he saw she's walking with 3 men. He thought that maybe the Germans sent. He was afraid. But my sister realized, and she said, Daddy, it's friends. I'm fine. And that's where we became united. Now, my father said the forest is not safe enough because the shepherds bring there the cows and the sheep, and that they will see us. And they would also give us away because the Germans offer them a lot of money and also for giving every Jew out to them. So my father said we have to go to the swamps. In the swamps, there was far away in the forest, but animals don't come there. The shepherds don't go there. We'll be safe. And that's where we walked away to the swamps. Now the question is, how can we live in swamps? Because it's all, you can drown. But there were very big trees, and each tree had like a little island, like 6 or 8 feet around the tree. And my father, when he ran away to the forest, he knew there are a few things essential you have to take. Matches to have a fire, a saw to saw wood, and like, to a hammer, how do you say? A hammer?
An axe?
An axe, that's right. Not an ox, but an axe.
An axe,
yeah.
yeah.
No, I'm joking. Anyway, those were necessity to have in the forest. And there he cut trees and he made like a bridge in the swamps. And on top of it, he built, and in Poland, the winters are very, very cold. It's below zero, snow a lot, and it's very cold. So he built, it was still not cold, so he built a little hut from leaves and branches and mud. And then at night, and we were there, and they made from the grass that we could lay down like a bed, all of us inside. We were all together now, all the 6 children, my parents, and the 3 men. My father also, one of the Polish friends gave my father a gun and a pistol and said, Israel, this will save your life. You must have a gun. So we had that. And then at night, my father and my big siblings and the 3 men went to look for food. Every night they went, and my father told them another thing. Don't ever steal from the fields from peasants close by, because they will look to kill us. We have to steal food, to take food. Still doesn't sound nice. To take from the fields, like leftover potatoes, carrots, beets, whatever it's still there, at night, but far away where we are hiding. And sometimes they caught a chicken, whatever there, and they came, and my mother and my brother and I was sitting in the swamp a whole night, and they were gone. My mother never knew if they will come alive the next day or not. Because in the beginning, in the forest, were also partisans, but they were a lot of criminals. They were not organized. And they looked to kill Jews. They hated the Jews. They killed Germans and Jews, both. So we had to make sure that we don't find those partisans. We were more afraid of them, because the Germans wouldn't go in the forest like that, or in the swamps. But the partisans, they were there. So this was going on for weeks and months, that every night they went, they looked for food, and they brought. But winter, we had to prepare everything for the winter. Winter, my father said, we cannot walk. Because when you walk in the snow, there are people. You see from the step, So what we had to prepare is all the food till October, when it's really cold. And how do you keep all the food? You put them in the ground, because at night, when it's cold and it's frozen, it keeps meat and everything frozen for the whole winter in the earth. So that's the way we prepared the whole spring, summer, and that for the whole winter. And we were like this till 1943. In 1943, the Russians sent already organized in parachutes soldiers from Moscow, from all over. These were already real soldiers, Russian. And in 1943 already, the Germans were not as strong. They started already to lose certain places. So the army came, some of them, and also partisans, and they were different already. They were organized. They had Jewish partisans among them. And there was a very big, I think there were a few thousand people. They were called Kolpak. They were not far from us. And my father met them, and we wanted to join them. They said no, they cannot have children, because if a child starts crying, the Germans will find them. Absolutely no kids. but they will take the older brother and my father, my mother, because my mother can cook for them. My father can show them in the forest, because he knew all the forest. And my other brother, the 16-year-old, can go and fight with them. And we had a gun, which that's what they look, people with guns. So but they were going, the partisans, to blow up the rails where the Germans used to bring with the train all the munition or the soldiers. They used to go and blow up. And one day my brother didn't run away fast enough, and he put all the dynamite and it blew up and he was all wounded. That was my Aaron. By the way, his job was, I forgot to say, my father told everybody when they shoot while we were hiding, what everybody of the children was supposed to do. His job was to take me here on his shoulder and run. He said always he used to take me when they were shooting there and run with me. And I almost used to choke him. And he said, Sonia, don't choke me. I said, no, you will drop me. I'm afraid you will drop me. That was what he used to tell me. And anyway, at that time, 43, already our life was better because my mother cooked for them. We were behind the partisans. They didn't want us, the small children. And so at night, they brought food from the partisans to us, and my mother cooked. And my father used to come at night. And we were safe because they were the German partisans. We were behind the partisans, so we felt already safe. And in 1944, already the Germans started to lose. And then they where we used to live before the war was already liberated. The Germans were already gone from there. So and the partisans, all of them from the forest, went to the battle already, to all the way organized to go to fight the Germans. And we came back to the town where we lived before the war. And that time the Russians occupied. I was born in Poland, but the Russians occupied already, and it was all Russians there. And my sister, because she knew languages, they took her to work there in 1944. And my father, and at that time, so the question was, we had to start life from the beginning. So my father, what did he know? Because of the factory, he took corn and made vodka. That's what he started to sell. That's from the beginning. It had to start to make something a living. Obviously, so the factory, and that was blown up. It was not ours to begin with. So we started to we saved some money, and my father had 5 brothers and 2 sisters in New York. They came here in around 1914. My grandmother sent them from Poland when the First World War was in 1914. They were 16-year-old, 18-year-old. The sisters were 16, and the brothers were probably the age to go to the army. So my father wanted eventually to go to America, to his family. So anyway, the Russians found my father doing the vodka. They arrested him, and we gave whatever we had, the money saved, and we ran away from there. We ran away to Lodz, that was another place, and we made false papers that we are Greek, and we want to go to Greece. I remember my mother told me, don't speak Yiddish and don't speak Russian. I said, but I can speak Greek. She said, don't talk at all. And from there we went to Prague. And that was in 1946. Here already, 1945, already the war finished all in United States already. It was at the end of the Second World War. And from Prague, we went to Munich. And next to Munich, in Germany, we went to Germany. On the way, then came already people from Israel, all over looking for survivors. They wanted to take us to Israel. But the family sent money to my father. We should all come to America. So while we were in Germany, we lived in a camp that used to be for the German soldiers. Now the American took it over, and they put all the Holocaust survivors. It was called Survaival. My sister, meantime, she was 21, fell in love with a guy, him. And he was a Zionist. So he said, not America, we're going to Israel. And my sister got married, it was in 1946. And with my brother, only they could go because Israel didn't exist yet, it was Palestine. The British were there. So my sister, my brother-in-law, and my brother Aaron went illegally through Italy, through the Alps, and then they had some ships from, and they took them illegally to Israel. And in Haifa, they were caught by the British. They didn't let them off in Israel, and they sent them back to Cyprus. That was an island. And there they were in a camp for 2 years. In the end of 47, 48, they let them go to Israel. Then the war broke out 1948 in Israel. Where is my darling Jordana?
Danielle.
No, Danielle. Oh yeah, Danielle, sorry, you're Danielle. It was the UN and it was declared as a Jewish state. Jordan got Jordan. I'm saying it because on the internet you can get different stories. The UN gave us a land that we were there. It was from the history hours. And in Europe, when the anti-Semites hated us, they said, Kike, go to Israel, to Palestine. That's what I heard all the time. So finally, we got a Jewish state, a small little country. In 1948, my brother-in-law was taken to the army in 1994 because we were surrounded with 7 countries and they attacked us. They did not want we should have a state. So those people just came out from concentration camps. Some of them didn't know how to use a gun. They gave them guns and they had to defend. There was no other way. We had to defend our life. And obviously, you know the history. We won. It was a miracle, but we won with all the nations. From Sudan, they came with camels at that time, wild, some of them from the Muslim countries. And they were jumping on the Israelis and biting them here. They didn't even have guns. It was so it's not the same like today. Anyway, and in 1949, we were allowed from Germany. It became an Israeli Jewish country, and we were allowed to go to Israel. Obviously, my father decided to go to Israel because he had already a daughter there, and the first grandson was born in 1948. So he said, no, it's not going to be my brothers and my sister, it's going to be Israel. So that's the way my little children, I ended up in Israel. And I was born again in Israel. No more names, no more. I didn't know why I was called even. I couldn't comprehend why I was different in every country. And there I came, and I loved it. I loved the freedom. And then I couldn't wait when I finished high school to go to the army. I couldn't wait. And I'm a very proud one. I served 2 years in the army, but how did I end up in America? That's another story. And I have American kids and grandkids. Well, I also want to mention my uncle. He was my father's brother. He is very special because he also had the same business in a different place, manufacturing the turpentine and all that from the roots of the trees. He had 5 children and a wife. When they came, in the beginning for the men, in the beginning in 1941, and they took away the men. Some of them never came back alive. So his wife took him. She saw the Germans walking, and she was hiding my uncle. But the Germans came and they picked up the 5 children and the wife, and they shot them all. That uncle, Leibe, his name is Proshitsky, he heard the children screaming, Daddy, help us, but he was hidden. And he survived, and he went then to the Russian army. He wanted to kill to take revenge, but he said bullets were killing his hair and killing his friends, but never killed him. And he made his way to Israel. He lived in Israel, but he has nobody. He never wanted to. after the war, he was still in the 40s. He never wanted to get married. He always told me every night when he sleeps, he can hear his children and his wife ask him, Daddy, help us. So I just want to talk about him because there's nobody survived of his family. But every Yom Kippur, I'd light a candle because he's my uncle. And that's it. Anyway, here I am in America, and I have 2 beautiful children. And where is my daughter-in-law, my darling daughter-in-law, and grandchildren? And God blessed me. And the Germans did not succeed. We built a family, and I'm so proud of him. I have a wonderful, wonderful family.
Daughter in the army, granddaughter.
Oh, granddaughter, sure, I did say
And a
granddaughter.
granddaughter in the army in Israel.
Oh, yeah, and I have something which is my pride and my joy. I have a granddaughter, her girl. She finished high school and went to Israel to be as a lonely soldier. And now she's a soldier. She goes in her grandmother's footsteps. So I have pictures of her. Did you find Ayala there?
This is you.
Yeah, that's me. You show them where I am. Here I am as a soldier in Israel.
If you want to hold them up, I can get them.
Oh.
So
Yeah.
you can point to where you
Yeah.
are, Mommy.
Here, that's me. This is in Sinai War. I was in Sinai War, by the way. And I have a medal in 1955 that I was in the war. Yeah. Yeah, and that's my whole group also here. And here, the prettiest girl. Right.
Show them, they can't see.
I'm very modest. Yeah. Yeah. And now, where is the picture of the 3 of them. This one.
This is 2.
No. Oh, this is my granddaughter, yeah, in the army. That's my granddaughter, right. That's her too.
This is the one that's bending.
The one who's bending. Yeah, I will put it through, you'll see. Yeah. You have to worry. The girls may decide to go in the steps of my granddaughter, end up in Israel.
Yeah. So that's
Yeah.
Eileen's daughter, Ayala. She has 2 daughters.
Yes.
Yeah, she has to yell. That's
Eileen's
Maya
oldest daughter.
and Ayelet,
She's
right.
next in line to do the military.
Yeah.
How long is the military? How long do you stay?
2 years for the
No,
girls.
it's 2 years, 4
She
months.
signed a little bit more.
And if you do combat, it's 2 years, 8 months.
When she came out for an interview, they wanted to put her in foreign affairs, my granddaughter. She said, I didn't come to Israel to be in an office with a computer. I want to be in a combat. So she got what she wanted. Then she calls her mommy, Ma, all the complaints. But it's okay.
Anybody have any questions?
Oh, yeah,
Things
any
that they
questions if I know? You have to know exactly, if I was 3-year-old, how do I know all that? They never stopped talking all my life, my siblings and my parents. When I used to come to Israel to visit, I used to go in bed with my sister, and she told me again this story, and again this story. And I never forgot it. I just, all my life, from the age of 3, I heard it all the time.
Can you go through the family members in that picture? one
Yes.
more
My father, Israel. My mother, Chaya. My oldest sister, Nahama. That's her husband, Yitzchak. My brother, he was 16 years old at that time, Aaron. Bezalel, my other brother. My Gershon, my other brother. And this is Moshe. He lived in Montreal. By the way, it was his daughter who is your neighbor, my niece.
Rhonda.
How does Moish?
Moshe is my brother.
Yeah. Why did he go to Canada? Well, how did he get to Canada?
He saw his sister married an American. He married a Canadian.
And the name?
Sonia, his wife name was Sonia also. That's the way he ended up in Canada.
Rhonda's mom.
I was very, very close to my brother. He passed away a few years ago. Yeah, I miss them terribly. To me, my family is more than just You are very blessed, all of you, that you have family. But to me, family is more than just family because we almost lost them. And when you lose something, you get it, you know how dear it is. And there's nothing like family. Nothing like family. To me, family is everything.
Did your parents ever get to America?
They came to visit me 4 times. Yeah,
But they stayed in Israel?
they stayed in Israel. Yeah, they stayed. They had very hard life in the beginning. When we came in '49, my parents 2 years in tents. Israel was just nothing. It was sand. Tel Aviv was just sand. It was Allenby, which in the time of the Turks and the Turkish and the British, they were built, and it was all sand. And slowly, it's amazing. Every year I go there, I can't believe the changes. I mean, it's amazing what they build. Tel Aviv is almost like Manhattan. I would love all of you who never went to Israel, please visit Israel, please. It's when I go there, and I go there every year, and I go to Jerusalem, I walk and I say, King David walked here. Solomon the king walks here, and Sonia walks here. It's amazing. It's amazing. It's history. It's all history. Wherever you move there, it's all history. You go Masada, it's history. That's when the Romans occupied us before the destruction of Israel. Over 2,000 years ago, they were the leftover Masada before the the Romans, right? And okay, when you speak in Hebrew, you will have an accent too, and I will correct you, okay? So it's all full with history. It's amazing, yeah.
I don't understand how Americans can go just over to the Israeli army. That doesn't make any sense to me.
She had to become a citizen.
So
She is
you have
a-
dual citizenship?
So she has dual citizenship, yes.
Yeah.
Your daughter does?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
And how does she get that? Did she have to live there for some time, or?
No, there are,
Yeah.
If you're Jewish, you can join the army as a lone soldier and they take care of you.
Oh,
Not only that, later in college, they participate in rent, they help out for the lonely
ha-
soldiers.
oh, I see.
but basically, they're trying to recruit you. They're interested in you coming,
Because
living,
of the Jewish religion,
defending-
you can do that.
right. That's, it's easy,
Okay.
yes. Not to say, I mean, that's,
Okay.
I don't know if that's, I mean, there's several criteria that certainly facilitates the whole thing if you're Jewish and,
Yeah.
Any other questions, if I can answer? Hi, Hillary. I tell you your name, I won't forget. I think of Hillary Clinton. So I just,
you're gonna get that all night.
no, because I associate some names with somebody that I shouldn't forget. So,
I guess the only other thing that we were saying is that Aaron, when she was saying that he was helping out with on the trains to try and
to blow up the rail, yeah.
especially.
Oh, he was wounded. I said he was
Right.
wounded,
He
right.
lost his finger.
Oh, it was all over him, but in the partisans, they had doctors and they treated him. That was in 43 already, at the end of 43.
What's a partisan?
Yeah, what is the part?
Partisans are like guerrilla. They live in the forest, they're hiding, but they fight the enemy. Those are partisans. I think it's more of a Russian word. I don't know if in...
But it was basically those that felt like they needed to fight back. They weren't just going to let things happen to them.
Partisans, no. Only Polish, Russian, and Jews. Yeah, yeah. Defending their own country. When you become a partisan, when you're being occupied, yeah.
Like the movie Defiance.
They didn't like the Jewish people either in the beginning. Remember, they were afraid of those people in the beginning when you were hiding because they didn't like Jewish people either.
Well, those in the beginning, they were not organized. They were criminals, a lot of them. They were also fighting partisans, but they were criminals. But later on, there was a different kind of material. Yeah, they were organized and they were a different kind of people then. Yeah.
Gary, did you want to say anything? My brother's a historian.
That's my son. He's listening. He's the quiet one.
So how did you first went to Israel or America? I can't.
No, we came to Israel.
But you spent many years in transit going.
I was till the age of 20, till I got married. I was in Israel.
No, but after the war, till the age of 10, you were in Germany. You were in.
Yeah, we were 3 years in Germany. From 46 to 49, we lived in Germany, next to Munich. Wolfertshausen, it's a small place though.
So how did you meet your husband, and is he the reason you went to America?
Well, my husband, that was another story. He had a girlfriend in Paris. He lived in, after the war, he came to United States.
He is a
But-
Holocaust survivor also.
Yeah.
Was
Yeah,
a totally different story. Where
Right.
Almost his whole family perished.
right. But he was, and Israel had a 10-year anniversary. So he bought a ticket through Israel and then to go to Paris to meet his girlfriend. So he went to Israel for the 10th anniversary, and then he met me, and he forgot about his girlfriend. That's it.
Was it hard to live in Germany, honestly, in the beginning? Was it
Well,
difficult?
we lived like in a camp, all the survivors, but
Right, but you're in
I
Germany.
went to a little town, Wolfertshausen, there, to take piano lessons. My mother sent me there. While I was walking, I was 7-year-old, and that still, from the windows, children called me Jude. It hurted me. I can't forget, when you're a child, you're so sensitive. And certain things, still today, it still hurts me.
But even to go from just the people who were mowing you down and then go live in that country.
I know,
think
but
that
not
must be
only
so
that, they
tough.
lost the war already, so why that hatred? What can I tell you?
No, I understand that, but I'm saying it must have been really hard versus living in another country.
Well, we lived among, the American helped us at that time. They gave us, food, and they gave us clothes, all that. It's called the UNRWA. It was organization, American. And we had it very good at that time, after being all that
Yeah,
starvation and food.
yeah.
Yeah, I discovered chocolate, which I wish I wouldn't. That's my biggest enemy. And the American gave us that little candy, that with all the different colors, that little with the little holes inside.
A lifesaver.
Yeah, lifesavers. And gum. I never had gum before. I used to eat and swallow. I didn't know what gum was. So that's it.
Did you have a sense of, the East and West tension after the end of the war? Like, you could have easily ended up on one side of the Iron Curtain or the other side of the Iron Curtain. Did that matter to you? Did you have a sense of the Russians versus the Americans as in a post-war Europe?
Well, I know that my father wanted to be united with his brothers in New York. So after the war, I think that's what he wanted, his family, to go to America to the family. So, and not to stay in Russia, because the communism, it's terrible, the communism. I remember that when somebody, after the war, I'm talking about 44, 45, when they knocked on the door, NKVD, that's police who works for the government, our heart was shaking. Because it's dictatorship. Communism is dictatorship. It's not freedom like here. I hope that all you know what freedom in America is. It's a wonderful country. I think we are born to be free. We are born. That's what all the human people want, and it's wonderful here. I appreciate, because I knew both sides. I knew communism, and the fear that you live under, the communism, and then you come to that freedom that you can say what you like. And
When did you live under communism?
we lived. I was born already. Was occupied by the Russians till from 38 I was born till 45, 46 under communism. Yeah, Stalin. And when I started to go in school, they used to give us cocoa, and they told us, who is giving you? And we had to say, Daddy Stalin. It was a big picture. In school, we had to wear a little red aniva, how do you say?
Tie.
A little red tie, like the communists. And brainwashed from childhood. Who gives you the cocoa? Who gives you the little roll? Daddy Stalin, Dada Stalin in Russia. Yeah. So that's what communism is all about.
You started to say about the three people, the people that survived, but then One of
Oh,
them
that
went
one
to
got
the
killed
war.
in 1948 in Israel. One of the 3 people that my
When he was
sister,
fighting.
brought to us. So 3 of them. One was the Russian took him and he got killed in 44. One in 48 got killed in Milchemet HaShachor. How do you say? In the Independence War, 1948. And the third one, David was his name, ended up in Brooklyn living. And when my parents came to visit me, he came and introduced all his family my father, and he said of my father, that's the man who saved me in the forest.
Wow.
So that's my story.
Thank you, Sonia. Thank you.
You're very welcome, and thank you for coming and wanting to hear it, because I don't want it to be forgotten. Some people deny it and we're still living. I mean, still the Holocaust people are still alive. So I wonder if, I'm glad that they have some pictures when Eisenhower went to the ghetto, and he has pictures, he took movies of all the skeletons and the hundreds of thousands of children's shoes in the concentration camps. He took pictures. So there's something that they cannot deny, that the Holocaust didn't exist. So you should keep on telling your children and your and when you'll be grandparent, my age, keep on talking. That's it.
What happens when you forget?
Things can repeat itself, right? So I didn't even need my notes.